Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Dev, all glories to Assembled Vaishnava devotees, and all glories to our revered speaker for today, Her Grace, Mother URMILA Devi. We're very much grateful to have your association here today, Mother URMILA. I'm actually one of your students, and it says once a student, always a student. So I'm always a student. I take the humanitic class with you. Which was so beneficial. I think there are a couple of devotees here who took that same course. We do not have enough time, so, and of course we do not have many devotees here, but devotees will be joining very shortly. So we're going to play Jai Radha Madhava by Srila Prabhupada, which is kind of about 3 minutes. And then after that, you take it over from here, Mother. Let me do this, make co-host. All right.
Jai Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Bihari Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jai Mahatma Mansa Paribhajara Acharya Sakare Small Ram Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Jai Ananda Gori Vaishnava Jai Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Jai Names of the whole Sri Krishna Sri Radha Krishna Bhogavna Sam Kanda Radha Kunda Giri Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the All glories to the Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you. So you may take it over from here.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So it is June 18th, 2024, and this is on the internet with ISKCON Africa. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paskatya Desatarani Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Samsajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpa Chubhischa Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitana Ampavanevyo Vaishnavevi Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, questions by Vidura. We're going to read texts 1 and 2. Shri Sukha Uvacha Eva Metad Pura Pristo Maitreyo Bhagavan Kilao Shatravanam Pravishtena Twaktva Sagriham Vriddhimat. Maybe you can. Okay. Sri Sukha Uvacha, Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Evam, thus, etat, this, pura, formerly, prishta, being asked, Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya, Bhagavan, his grace, Kila, certainly, Kshetra, by Vidura, Vanam, forest, Pravishtena, entering, Twaktva, renouncing, Swagriham, own house, Riddhimat, prosperous. Srila Prabhupada's translation. Sukadev Goswami said, O king, after Vidura, the great devotee, renounced his prosperous home and entered the forest, he asked these very questions of his grace Maitreya Rishi. Text 2. Yad Vayayam Mantrakidvo Bhagavan Akileshvara Poravendra Graham Hitva Praviveshat Masat Kritam. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not care at all for Duryodhana's house. Srila Prabhupada's purport. According to the Gaudiya Achinta Beda Beda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is not different from Sri Krishna, Tad Dhamma Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also a source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavana, and Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly a family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. Yadvayayam mantrakidvo Bhagavan Akileshwara Poravendra Graham Hitva Pravive Shat Kritam. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not care at all for Duryodhana's house. So, of course, we have the wonderful story with the house of Vidura and the house of Duryodhana. How when Krishna was visiting, when he went on a peace mission, that he was invited by Duryodhana for a very big opulent feast and entertainment and so forth. And he was invited by Vidura for a more simple meal. And he went to Vidura's house instead, which greatly insulted Duryodhana. Duryodhana was really fried about that. And while he was visiting Vidura, Vidura or Vidura's wife, was in so much ecstasy to see Krishna that they offered him banana peels instead of the bananas. They were peeling the bananas and they offered him the peels. We wrote a children's book about this story. And Krishna was eating the peels and being very happy with the devotion. Of course, then Vidura realized what was happening and profusely apologized. So here Srila Prabhupada's making a point about a devotee's home. In one sense, all homes are made of building materials, wood or bricks or stone or bamboo or straw or something, some kind of building materials coming from the earth. Bhumira Panalovayu. Krishna's Bina, his separated Prakriti, his separated energy, and dull matter, Prabhupada would say. Stones are dull matter. So even if your house is made of marble, marble is stone, it's just dull matter. Yeah. And what is the difference between one house and another? All houses are made out of something from the earth, trees or stones or straw or something. But when Krishna is happy with something, right? Here it says, whatever satisfies his senses is also Krishna. So when Krishna is satisfied with the use of a place, then that place becomes his abode, as if it were his own. And let's look at the sense, identifying with himself. Atma Sat. Atma is self. So here we have Griham, house. Identified that Krishna identified the house with himself. And therefore the house became as good as himself. So why would Vidura leave such a place? Why would Vidura leave a place where Krishna had gone and considered it as good as his own home, that it became as good as Vrindavan? Yeah, so we're going to look at the love of the Lord and the love of the devotee for Vrindavana. In his very famous book, Sri Manashiksha, which we had the great honor and privilege to produce a translation of with commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prose commentary, poetry, the only published English translation of his poetry commentary on Sri Manashiksha and commentary of contemporary Vaishnavas. So there in the very first verse, that's a step-by-step guide to spontaneous devotion, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami explains that one should have a great unprecedented love, and he lists all of the items for which one should have a great unprecedented love. Unprecedented meaning, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, not love like we have in the material world, something beyond material love. And one of the items for which we should have this great love is Vrindavan, is the Lord's abode, is the Lord's home. Yes. So you know, we all have a special love for our home, and we can make our home like Vrindavan. We can also make our heart Vrindavan. And even though we can make our home Vrindavan and we can make our heart Vrindavan, sometimes one appears to leave Vrindavan, carrying Vrindavan in their heart for the Lord's service, which is what Vidura is doing here, using apparently the good and the bad things as an impetus for service. So we all have affection for our home. Most of us have some affection for our birthplace, for the home of our parents and the home of our family. And actually, it says that one who thinks like this, they're no better than just an animal who's attached to their territory. But it's a natural feeling like that. Just like I was born and raised in New York City, and I joined the Hare Krishna movement in Chicago. And one time I was being introduced at the beginning of a class, and the person said that my hometown was Chicago. And I immediately felt, oh, no, that's not my home. My hometown is New York. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm so attached to my home, although I haven't lived there for I haven't lived there for over 40 years. So that's a natural feeling. Of course, this becomes this natural feeling of attachment to the place of one's birth or one's home becomes perverted into war. Just like right now in the world, we have some significant wars going on over land. But that's very common. Practically at any time in recent history, there's at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 wars going on where people are fighting over a piece of land. This is my home. No, this is my home. Whose home is it? Who's going to own the land? And sometimes they're fighting over the land because there's gold there, or there's oil, or something, or it's excellent crop land or something like that. And sometimes the land they're fighting over is a piece of desert. But, you know, it's my land. No, it's my land. So it becomes, this attachment to home becomes perverted into something. But it's a natural thing to do, or wherever we have our home at present, wherever we live, even if we're just renting a flat, an apartment somewhere, even if we're just renting a room in someone else's flat, we may feel like that. Because when you go to your home, you feel that you can relax. You feel that you can be yourself. When you have someplace that's your home, you can, hopefully, if you can't pay for it, if you have enough money, you can decorate it the way you like it. You can paint. I have a little room here in the ashram at the temple in Hillsborough, North Carolina. So when the temple gave me this room, when I got stuck here during COVID, during the pandemic, which was very kind of them. So the walls had obviously been painted recently, but they were all kind of a bright blue color. And I remember my granddaughter saying, do you want to paint the walls? And I said, well, there's no need. They're obviously freshly painted. And she said, but Grandma, do you like the color? And I'm like, well, I really don't want this color for walls. She said, well, if you're going to be staying here for a while, you might as well paint the walls the color that you like. And I'm glad she convinced me of that. Because once you have, you know, stuff in there, it's so much harder to paint. So, you know, painted the walls color that I liked, and put up pictures on the walls that I liked, and arranged things the way that I wanted them, and so forth, right? That's what we do. And then you have some stuff, even if you don't have very much stuff. I mean, I have a very small room. I don't have space for a lot of stuff, and I don't like a lot of stuff, but whatever stuff I have is still, it's my stuff. And it can be where I want it. And the room therefore becomes an expression of myself. You know, if somebody wants to know something about me and something about my personality and my likes and dislikes, if they come in the room and they look around and what kind of art is on the wall, and, you know, what chairs are there, and what kind of clothes are here, what kind of stuff is here, then you'll understand something about the person, something about their nature, something about their personality, because they've arranged it to be an extension of themselves. So this is certainly true with Krishna's own personal abode. I mean, in one sense, it's true with everything that Krishna has created, that Krishna manifests, but he also has his personal abode. And his personal abode in Vaikuntha, in Dwarka, in Mathura, in Vrindavan, especially Vrindavan, is a manifestation of what he likes. So when a devotee takes their home and they make it, of course, it's still going to be personal. If you take 5 devotees, each of them is going to do their home a little differently because they're also persons, but they're going to try to make a home that will please Krishna. They're thinking not only is it their home, but they're thinking that it's Krishna's home. Just like when I was growing up, we had a very large flat in New York, and there was servants' quarters. So we had a person like who took care of me and so forth when I was a child, and they lived in that part of the apartment. Right? So that was our apartment, but that was also their room. And they wanted to keep it in such a way that would please us and that would please them. Or if you're renting a place from a landlord, so you have to maintain your house that you're renting or your apartment that you're renting such that the landlord will be happy, but also it's also going to reflect something of yourself. My granddaughter and her husband and children rent a place from her mother, my daughter. And so they have to keep it the way my daughter likes because they're renting it from her. But it also reflects something of their own personality and what they like. So when the devotee says, okay, Krishna is actually the landlord of my place, even if I so-called own it, right? I suppose this is true also even if you own something in terms of the government. You know, in most of the world, at least, the government has some rules about construction. Usually the rules have to do with safety, fire codes, and, you know, sometimes earthquakes, or depending on what part of the world you live in. So the government has certain codes, and you need to build and maintain your place according to those codes. Like, because I have a room at a temple, we get inspections periodically by the fire inspector, the local fire marshal. So they come and see, do you have a smoke detector here? Do you have a fire extinguisher, and so forth? And where are people allowed to sleep? And you know, they have these rules. And so you have to have your facility in line with their desires, although it's still an expression of your personal self. So we try to make our homes Vrindavan because we understand that Krishna is the owner, whether I technically own it or I'm technically renting. Krishna is the owner of my home, of my room. And therefore, I want to make it a place where he wants to come. Yes? So that he will fall in love with my room. Just like on the material level, we fall in love with our place of birth, or we fall in love with our home. Oh, I'm home. I can relax. I can be myself. My place can be an expression of myself. So we also want our place to be an expression of Krishna. We want it to be a place where Krishna, of course, he's always there. Ekopi sorachaitam jagadandakoti yat shaktirasti jagadanda chayayadanta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. Krishna's already there in every atom. He's already there as the air, as Arjuna says in the 11th chapter. You are air, you are fire. He's in our room as the heat of the sun or our heating system. He's there as the air. He's there. So many things. He's already there. But we want him to want to come in his personal form and say, yes, I can relax here. I can be myself here. This place is an extension of myself. So, of course, we do that in a formal way by creating some sort of an altar. So we create some people, like here in this room, I just have a shelf. Actually, that was built by another devotee who lived here previous to me. They built some cabinetry that has a very logical, reasonable place to put an altar. But sometimes it could just be a top of a bureau or a chest of drawers, or it might just be a shelf on the wall. And sometimes you see devotees in their home, they have these gorgeous, expensive, carved, huge altar like a temple. I mean, I've been to devotees' homes where, here I'm just staying in one little room, but you have devotees who have, a multi-room or multi-story house, and they may have one whole room dedicated for the altar, for their temple room, where they have a big altar, or maybe they have in one of their main rooms of their house a large piece of furniture that's very beautiful, which is Krishna's own place. Just like in a home, you may have, if there's multiple bedrooms, there may be a bedroom for the husband and wife, and then another bedroom for the sons, and another bedroom for the daughters, and maybe there's a guest room. So the altar is like Krishna's room. That's where he stays. But of course, he stays there all the time. He's the master, and all of us are staying basically in the servants' quarters. And so we understand that the house belongs to Krishna. He has what we call the master bedroom, and then we all have the servants' quarters in his house. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about that. He says, I see that you are the master of my house, and everyone in the house is your servant, and I'm like the chief servant. In former times, before so much modern machinery, all over the world, people who had some money, they would have a whole bevy of servants, and they would have a chief servant who was in charge of the other servants. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, so I'm here as the chief servant, and I'm seeing my family members as all your servants, and I go out and to my job, and I earn a livelihood to pay for your home, and to pay to maintain your servants, and to keep your household nicely. So we have an area like that, and then we have unprecedented love. Then we can have, how interesting this is, then we can have unprecedented love for our home, because it's not our home. This is the very point being made here in today's verse, that it's not our home anymore. It's Krishna's home. And why would one ever leave it? One would stay always with Krishna in his home. If we could realize that here's Krishna in my home, and my home becomes an extension of himself, that everything is to satisfy his senses and his desire, then there's no need to go anyplace else. Right? And one can have some attachment to that place. One can have not just attachment, one can have unprecedented love for Krishna's home. But not only do we have an altar, but we should make the whole facility something that will be pleasing to him. So I visited our farm in Hungary, New Vrejdam, and there Shiva Maharaj has taken to heart Srila Prabhupada's instructions in the fifth purpose of ISKCON, to create a place of transcendental pastimes for the Lord. So he's created, okay, over here is Govardhan, it's a little hill, and over here is Govardhan Hill, and there's a little stream there, a little creek, and this is the Yamuna River. And he's designated every building as some holy place, every building in every area as some place, holy place in Vrindavan, and there's a field. He says this is where the deities come to rasa dance, and he's told the devotees, he said that our deities, they're Radhashama Sundar there at New Vrajdam, he said they're walking around the property, they're seeing the property, and they're dancing over here, they're having this pastime over here, and this pastime over here. So it's like that. It's not that the Lord is just some piece of stone or a stone statue on our altar, but he's actually going through the home. He's the master of the home. And so everything in the home should be very clean. Srila Prabhupada said we should be revolutionary clean. So we keep our home or our temple. This is love. If you love a place, you care for it. I mean, we often see when we go to Vrindavan in India or other holy places in India that they're not kept very nicely, that the buildings are disintegrating and not being cared for, and that there's just rubbish and trash thrown everywhere. It's very sad. But if we really have love for our home as Vrindavana, then we will keep it very clean. We will make sure that the sounds in our home are pleasing for the Lord. We will make sure that the smells are pleasing. We will make sure that the whole mood is pleasing. Oh, this is Krishna's house. How we deal with other beings that may live with us, if we have a spouse or children or parents or whatever friends who are staying with us, we deal with them in a way that Krishna will also be pleased. Now, we can also make our heart Vrindavan, and I wanted to refer here to some other slokas. So there's one I'm going to go to in the first canto. This is Narada Muni, and this is the nice thing about giving a class online is you can just have this up on your screen. So Narada Muni is speaking to Srila Vyasadeva, and he says this very wonderful verse, right? So he says, Pragayata swa viryani tirtapada priyashrava ahuta iva me shrigram darshanam yati chetasi. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. So not only do we give Krishna a seat in our room, in our house, on our altar, but we also make an altar in our heart. Srila Prabhupada said in Geneva that chanting Hare Krishna means you make a diamond throne in your heart. You imagine, he said, we use the word imagine. He said, you imagine that you've created a diamond throne in your heart and you seated Krishna there, he says, and you bathe him with Ganga water and Yamuna water, and then you dress him and put ornaments on him. And then Prabhupada said, although he used the word imagine, he said, this is not false. It is a fact. And then he said, wherever you go in this exalted devotional service of having Krishna carried around in your heart, that wherever you go, you make the place a holy place. It's like we become a walking Vrindavan. That Krishna is sitting there. We have an altar. Of course, Krishna is already in our heart. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridaya Arjuna Tisthati. But we specifically invite him to sit down. And I wanted to look at another verse from the second canto, which I think is a particularly beautiful verse. So this is second canto, chapter 8, text 5. So this is Pravishta Karna Ranendra Swanan Bhava Saro Ruham Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Saliyasya Yata Sharat. Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So this is a particularly interesting verse, because on the one hand, we're talking about cleanliness. We want to have a clean heart for the Lord to sit down on. However, when the Lord sits there, he also cleanses it himself. His very presence is cleaning it. Just like if you have a small pool that's muddy and then there's torrential rains, the pool becomes clear water. And this is very sweet. This is, again, the Lord's activities. As Narada Muni was talking about chanting the Lord's activities, so this is the Lord's activities, Karna Randendra, through the holes of the ears. And then this relationship, Swanam Bhava, our own love for the Lord. Sara Ruham, there's a flower of our love for the Lord. And the Lord sits there. The Lord comes through the holes of the ears and he sits. This is a beautiful thing. Sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship. And this is why the Lord entered into the Pandava's house or Vidura's house, but not into Duryodhana's house, because Duryodhana had no loving relationship. Now, what's particularly significant about this verse, 285, is that even if we still have material contaminations. Even if we still have material contaminations, inviting the Lord to sit on the heart with some affection, with some devotion, will cleanse those material contaminations. So we try to be clean to invite him in, but inviting him in also is cleansing. So we want our own heart to be the Lord's abode. That's the point. We want our heart to be the Lord's abode. Not just our room, not just our physical building made of bricks or stone or wood or whatever material our drywall, our building is made out of. But this body is also made out of Bhumirapanalovayu Buddha Evacha. This body is also made out of the same kind of materials. After all, wood or tree was a living body. So our body made of bones and blood and skin and, stomach and intestines and lung and all that kind of stuff. This can become extraordinary. And this is the whole meaning of tilak, that this is the Lord's house. Just like in normal language, at least in America, we call a church or a temple or a mosque, or we call it a house of God. So tilak, we're saying you put a sign, like you put a sign outside of a temple or a church or a mosque or synagogue that says, so such and such church, this is the house of God. And so this is our sign that we've put outside of our temple, that the Lord live here as Narayana, as Madhavaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha. And one should meditate when putting on tilak on these 12 places. One actually meditates. Oh, here is Narayana. Here is the resting place of all living beings. Here established on my abdomen, and here is Madhava, the personified springtime in my chest, and here is Govinda, the master of the cows, on my throat, and so forth. And here is Keshava, he who has beautiful hair, or the master of Brahma and Shiva can also be it. And at the top of our head, Vasudevaya Namaha, there's a wonderful mantra, I think from the Hari Bhakti Vilas, about how that when we put Vasudevaya on the top of our head, that's the Lord surrounded by Shri and Bhu, his two consorts, and his Sudarshan discus and his weapons and all effulgence, taking residence there on our head. So we have the Lord in all of his forms on our arms and on our body. And this belongs to Krishna. This is where Krishna wants to live. So both, as we were saying, both ways, that we want to have our heart as clean as our home. And how interesting, we become attached to our body. Again, this is like an animal becomes attached to its body. I think the body is the self. But when Krishna is there, then one cares for one's body like that. One is thinking, oh, this body belongs to Krishna, and therefore I should take care of it. I should bathe this body because it's Krishna's. I should dress the body in nice, neat clothing because it's Krishna's. I should make sure to put healthy food into the body because it's Krishna's body. I should make sure that the body gets proper exercise and upkeep because it's Krishna's body. We have a typical thing that happens with cars owned by a temple, that we have some people who are thinking, well, the cars don't belong to anybody, and so we just won't take care of them. And then we have other people who think, oh, it's my car, and therefore I will take care of them. It's like renunciate Maya is, oh, it's nobody's car, so I won't change the oil, I won't make sure the gas tank is filled. I won't make sure the tires have enough air. And then you have the family Maya. Oh, it's my car. I'm going to take care of it because it's my car. So neither should we take care of this body because it's my body, nor should we take care of this. Should we neglect the body thinking that it doesn't belong to anybody? But we take care of it because it's Krishna's. So that is the mood. And then as Prabhupada, as I was saying, Prabhupada said in Geneva, if we chant in that consciousness that I am installing Krishna on the lotus of my heart, I'm calling for Krishna. And so he's sitting on the lotus of my heart. He's sitting on the lotus of my loving relationship with him, then we're always feeling that we're in Vrindavan. And wherever we go becomes Vrindavan. Wherever we go becomes a holy place. Holy place means one can contact the Lord very easily there. If I want to contact you, I go to your home. Even if you're not home at the moment, if I wait there long enough, I'll run into you. So if we go to where Krishna's home is, we will find his. And if I am carrying Krishna within myself, if I am a walking manifestation of Krishna's home, then anyone can contact Krishna by contacting me. And that's one of the definitions of a devotee, that a devotee is someone who immediately reminds one of the Lord. But the question in today's verse is, why would Vidura leave such a place? Why would Vidura leave the home of the Pandavas, or his own home where Krishna loved to stay? Apparently he left because Duryodhana insulted him and threatened him and said, who is this kept son of a maidservant? You should throw him out and leave him with only his breath, which could be understood to mean, well, one should beat him until he's practically at the point of death. So he was thinking, okay, I better get out of here. Like when Vibhishan left Ravana, when Ravana was threatening to have him arrested. So one could say he left in that way. And Prabhupada says here in today's purport that he was Vidura was barely affected. It's interesting because it says elsewhere in the Bhagavatam that Vidura was deeply aggrieved, and that the harsh words of Duryodhana were like arrows going into his heart, piercing his heart. But that he just saw this as the working of the Lord's illusory energy. So to whatever extent it disturbed him at the time, Vidura saw, oh, this is an opportunity for me to serve Krishna in another way. This is an opportunity for me to go meet Maitreya Rishi and to hear the Bhagavatam, which will benefit me and benefit us. I mean, all of us are benefiting because Vidura heard so many wonderful things from Maitreya Rishi. So the devotee, they're willing to, like the Prabhupada talked about so many people who take a vow to stay in Vrindavan, India, but that he left to bring Krishna consciousness to the world. And he said, after age 70, nobody leaves their home. So I'm 69, so I'm thinking, do I really want to keep traveling? It becomes very inconvenient as one gets older to travel. But one can say, oh, well, we're going to bring Krishna consciousness to others. We're going to go into the busy streets of a city, do Harinam on a Saturday night in the heart of London, where people are flagrantly breaking all 4 regulative principles out on the street. So to bring Krishna consciousness there, in places where God is not recognized, where he's not honored, where his presence is not acknowledged, where nobody sees that it is his home, in order to benefit, to grow in our awareness of Krishna's activities and to help others grow in that awareness. And when we do that, of course, Krishna says there's no one in the world more dear to him than somebody who apparently leaves Krishna's place to take Krishna to others. Of course, if we're carrying Krishna with ourselves, within ourselves in our heart, we never leave Krishna's place. And if wherever we are, we see that Krishna is the light of the sun, and Krishna is the heat of fire, and Krishna is the purifying wind, and Krishna is the life of all that lives, and Krishna is the living force in all living beings, and he's joining with our air of life, incoming and outgoing. That Krishna is all the ability we see in everyone. If we remember that, then we never actually feel that we're out of Krishna's home. Even if we're in a place where other people are not conscious of him, we don't feel like that. And whether our impetus to go is so-called materially good or so-called materially bad, whether our impetus to go and preach is that we're just so enlivened that we just, okay, I want to go and preach. Or if our impetus to go and preach is that somebody throws us out of our house, we lose our job, like Vidura, we lose our job or something, or our spouse throws us out or something like that. Some horrible thing happens. There's a war. When I was, so last year in August, I was in London staying at the home of some devotees from the Ukraine. And they were saying that how many devotees were from the Ukraine, but they were all mostly staying in the Ukraine. And then because of the war, they were traveling to all these other countries. That Krishna was like saying to them, go get out and preach. So the devotees can use some, good thing in the world, some bad thing in the world, some good or bad thing by external estimation to try to make the whole world into Vaikuntha, to try to have everyone in the world appreciate that Krishna is in their heart, that Krishna is in their home, that Krishna is everywhere, that Krishna is accessible everywhere. So that's what we want to do. And then we can have unprecedented love. I really like the song, the Madhurastakam, Adaram, Madhuram, Nayanam, Madhuram. All these things about Krishna are very sweet. Yes. Madhuradi Patera Kilam Madhuram. Everything is sweet about the Lord of sweetness. And it's things like Gopi Madhura, Lila Madhura, Gopa Madhura, Gabo Madhura. Krishna's gopis is sweet. His pastimes are sweet. His cowherd boys are sweet. The cows are sweet. Yamuna Madhura, Shalila Madhura. The Yamuna is sweet. The waves in the Yamuna are sweet. And then there's also at the end, it says Shrishtir Madhura, that the Lord's creation is also sweet. So Prabhupada writes in Krishna Book chapter 20 that materialists see the world as a very aggressive place. But to the devotees, everything is happily situated because they actually see that everything, that Krishna is everywhere and everything is his plan and everything is his energy. And ultimately, everything is his home. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the abode. I am the home. And whenever we feel like that Krishna is here, he's with us, then we feel that we can relax and be safe and sheltered in Krishna's home. So we have some time if anybody has questions or comments or corrections or anything that they would like to bring up.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother, for giving us this wealth of wisdom. Like Mother said, if anyone may have questions, comments, realizations, please, you may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Thakul Murari Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. So, Mother, I was fortunate to have your association. When you visited, I was visiting Gita Nagari at the time. So
Yes,
we had
yes.
nice encounters. So it's nice to see you again. So I say I would have, have to make the time to have, the association. Thanks for, as usual, thanks for the presentation. And we are fortunate for Srila Prabhupada's, the first generation devotees that we hold, invaluable debt. I don't think we can ever pay it in many lifetimes, but thanks for the presentation. So briefly, when I first met the devotees in the early 90s, I was fortunate to got a copy of them Back to God magazine, and fortunate also was, there was this, this series of talks between Maitri and Vidura. So I was saying, wow, I just got into the, some of the philosophers. I was saying, hey, this is sort of, the discourse was wonderful. So now each time I remember each time, the chapter comes up, I remember, I looked at it, there's something interesting as somebody who just got, used to the movement. So, and all the, the stories are on video, but like I was saying, it took not so much of a good situation. It took the time to go on pilgrimage and a lot of stuff, but also, in the Krishna's Leela, there's some wonderful pastimes. So thanks for the presentation, and I'm also, sort of pleased with it, that discourse between video and Maitreya. So thanks again for the presentation.
So we're grateful that Vidura decided to leave home with this conversation.
Yes.
That you could relish
What was
it.
that, Mother?
So many thousands of years later, you could be enjoying it.
Yes, it's wonderful. Yes. Hare Krishna.
So we're very grateful to Duryodhana for threatening him.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Thakur Murari Prabhu. Mother, I have this question which I think it's surfaced on this platform a couple times, and so far, I believe we at least I'll speak for myself. I haven't had a very satisfactory answer to the question yet. We read it that Krishna will enter into the heart of the pure devotee, and and you were explaining that he will be offered a seat, and then he will sit in the heart of the devotee. But the question I have, and some devotees on this platform have, is that Krishna is already in the hearts of everybody, whether one is a devotee or not. In fact, it is said that even a scripture saying that the worm in the stool, the Lord is in the heart of that worm. So, what do we mean when we say the Lord will enter into a pure devotee's heart?
So the other day there was a devotee visiting from India, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. He visited our temple here, and he gave the class in the morning. And then he and one other devotee, Aditya Narayan, right after the morning program, I'd come in my room to get a plate that I was going to take to the temple to get prasadam. But before I could leave my room, there's a knock on my door, and Gauranga Darshan and Aditya Narayan come into my home. But then I offered them a seat. I said, please sit down. Please sit down. And first Gauranga Darshan sits down. Aditya Narayan is still standing. I said, Prabhu, sit down, sit down. I have enough space here for two people to sit. Please sit down, sit down. So he sits down. Would you like some water? No, no. Are you sure? Would you like some water? They're both Indians, so I had to ask them several times, Would you like some water? Would you like some prasad? And they took a little prasad. So they were already in my room when they walked in, but still I offered them a seat. The Lord is already in our heart, certainly. But he's received by the devotee. The devotee receives him, and therefore he's pleased to be there. In one sense, he's already pleased to be there because he loves us. So, but then he's specifically pleased to be there. He takes a seat means to me that he relaxes, he accepts that we want him there. We're happy that he's there. Materialists are not so happy that the Lord is in the heart, actually. It makes them very nervous. If you say the Lord's in your heart, he knows everything you're thinking and everything you do, kind of like what they say in America about Santa Claus. He's watching you all year, and he knows if you've been good or he knows if you've been bad, and he's going to give you a Christmas present or not accordingly. And that's kind of scary. I've seen Christian tracts of like this big, scary God, who shows you I've been keeping track of everything you've done. So the materialistic people, what to speak of the worms and stool, they want to forget that the Lord is in the heart. They don't want him to feel comfortable there. They resent his presence. They feel like he's, big brother, quite literally watching them. They want to cover their camera. So, like I have this little thing that can just cut out my camera, right? They want to block him from knowing what's going on. They're not welcoming him. But the devotee, because as we were reading in the first and the second canto, he has this love. Oh, the Lord's in my heart? Oh, wow, that's wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I mean, a similar thing is there when we say that the guru plants the seed of bhakti in the heart, because the seed of bhakti is already there in all living entities. Everybody has eternal bhakti for the Lord. So how is it that we get it from the guru? But it's metaphorically, I mean, these are all metaphors. This is not literal. Metaphorically, the guru is planting the seed and teaching us how to water the seed of something that's already there. So you could say that he gives it to us. I mean, a simple life example is that I didn't know that I was a natural teacher until I met my mentor, my god sister, Jyotirmayi, and she awakened in me something that was already there. So I got that as a gift from her. Or I was seeing this one famous gymnast who was saying that, like really famous, I don't know, Olympic level gymnast. And he said that he became a gymnast because his mother got a coupon for a gymnastics class. So she enrolled her kid because she got a free coupon. Or my daughter, who runs a Bharatanatyam school, she started on that path. That's been her main service, one of her main services, because the person who became her teacher was giving free dance classes at the Detroit Temple. And so, you know, it was free. Why not send my kid like that? So one can say, I received this from this person. You know, but that desire actually was already there. The desire, the inclination was already there. So it's like that. Like Krishna is like, oh, you're welcoming me into your heart. Yes, Krishna's there, but I'm seating him. Lord, here you are. Please relax in my heart. Be welcome here. Sit down on the lotus of my loving relationship. Or Narad, when he says he appears as if called. So most of us don't feel or see the Lord in the heart. He's there. Oh, we hear that. Oh, he's there. But we don't have any experience of that. We don't know what that means. So Narada says, the Lord appears in my heart as if called whenever I chant his glories. He makes himself known. Oh, here I am. So it's that Krishna is revealing that he's in the heart and that the devotee is welcoming him to the heart. And it's put in language that he enters or he takes his seat there. I mean, you know, it's poetic language to express something that's real, but we're trying to use language to express that, like the guru plants the seed or something, they awaken something, they make it visible, they make it tangible. Yeah, like that. Is that all right?
Yes. Since it's being used metaphorically instead of like being literal, strikes a chord of understanding in me. But I know you don't have enough time with us today because you have other important something to attend to. But I had a question which is outside the text today, but we'll go to Madhashri Upanishad. If we still have maybe a few more minutes, then I may ask. Madhashri Upanishad, please, you may unmute.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Go. Hi, Bo. How you doing, Mataji?
Happy
I
to
just
see you.
wanted to say, I am happy to see you as well. I thought that I'm in another city, and I wanted to bring the book when I noticed that you were going to be on today, I wanted to bring the book, your Japa book that you had wrote, to tell you that it is very, very wonderful, very helpful, and thank you very much for writing it. And it is so wonderful to see you. Hari Hari Bo. You were one of Mother Krishna Nandini's favorite persons, okay?
Oh,
and I just wanted to share that with
my
you.
favorite people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Hari Hari Bo. Hari Krishna.
Haribo. So Sahadev Prabhu, if you have another question, we have just a few minutes, but I could take that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Mother URMILA. That is, since you are a board of the Shastric personnel we have in ISKCON, there is this, I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but we all know that Lord Krishna is the son of Devaki, and Vasudev.
Right.
But there is also this another statement from some reputable devotees we have in our movement that there is other aspect to that Yashoda also gave birth to twins, and that one of the twins was Krishna. And when Vasudeva Krishna entered into Nanda Yashoda's house, Vasudeva Krishna merged into Yashoda Krishna, and they became one. How scripturally true is this? I've been trying to.
This comes from a commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur often in his commentary gives dialogue between the persons in Leela that is not mentioned in the Shastra itself. He will often give details of the Leela that are not in the Shastra itself. There's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Bhajan Kutir, right by Shamakund at Manasapavanagat. Right outside his Bhajan Kutir, there's a peepal tree. And the local stories are that the peepal tree was there during the time of Lord Krishna and would actually tell Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur these stories. So that's where it comes from. Srila Prabhupada does mention it one time in a purport. I don't remember exactly the purport.
Yes, I've come across that one time. He mentioned that he did not say something to support it or whatever.
Exactly. He just simply mentions it. I don't know of any other of our acharyas who bring it up at all. So we accept Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as an authority. So that certainly is bona fide. It's not like just some story that somebody tells. However, my personal preference is that Srila Prabhupada, other than that one reference in that one purport, Srila Prabhupada consistently refers to Krishna as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and Yasoda and Nanda as his foster parents.
Yes.
And it's interesting he uses the word foster parents. I'm assuming that Prabhupada asked some of his American disciples, what do you call someone who takes care of a child for a while, but is not their biological parent and doesn't adopt them? They're neither, a biological parent nor an adoptive parent, but they take care. And that's, at least in the United States, we call them foster parents. And Srila Prabhupada consistently refers to Nanda and Yasoda as Krishna's foster parents and Devaki and Vasudeva as his actual parents. So because that's what Srila Prabhupada does, that is my personal preference. Although, again, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does tell this other pastime, and Prabhupada does allude to it, so we can also accept it as valid. One thing we can keep in mind is that our acharyas, just like Srila Rupa Goswami has his play Lalita Madhava, where he describes Krishna's primary queens in Dwarka as being the same gopis that were present in Vrindavan. He describes Satyabhama as being Radharani, and Rukmini as being Chandravali, and Jambavati as being Lalita, and so forth. And that they're not just expansions of those gopis, they're those gopis who go to Dwarka and marry Krishna. So one of our, I believe it's Sanatana Goswami, but I may be in error here, I don't remember for sure, who makes the comment that, well, this happens sometimes. So that's often the explanation for things like that is, this happens sometimes. So Krishna's pastimes are repeating, but there's variance in the pastimes. They're repeating, but they're not always exactly the same. And we sometimes have different acharyas that will disagree on what seems like just objective fact. Is there a flood at the end of every Manu, or is there not a flood at the end of every Manu? And some acharyas will say yes, and some acharyas will say no. And you're thinking, well, that's kind of objective, either there is or there isn't. How can you have different opinions about it? But we do have these different points of view on things. And we have also, there'll be a similar story about similar personalities told in different parts of the Shastra, different Puranas that's told differently. And again, our explanation for that is generally that this is some variant on a pastime that occurs at another yuga. I mean, another thing to keep in mind is that if there's some event that's going on, let's say there's some big event that's going on that everyone who's listening to this class attends, and then afterwards they tell the story of what happened, they're all going to tell it somewhat differently. They're all going to have a somewhat different perspective. So this is also that of personalism. And we're dealing with a mystical, amazing realm where anything can happen. And so different, I mean, maybe Mother Yasoda reveals that there's also this mystical element to this, to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that's not revealed to others. But again, my personal preference is that I give, and this is my personal preference, I'm not sure say everyone should do this. I only present the way Prabhupada primarily presented it. I accept that the other version is true or is true in some situations, but I don't emphasize it because Srila Prabhupada didn't emphasize it.
Yeah.
That's again a personal decision on my part, and it's not that other people have to do that, or other people could really take Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's. So I really do have to go. I have an
Yes.
appointment that I have
Thank
to
you.
be up for, and I have some service.
Thank you so much, Mother. What you opined on is exactly my way of thinking also. Some of us may see you in 2 weeks' time. Some of us may be coming to North Carolina in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, very nice. Oh,
Yeah.
be lovely to see some of you then. And I'll probably be going to New York sometime in July. It's not fixed yet, but that's the.
Okay. Some of us will be coming next week.
And I have. I haven't been to Africa in a while, but I've only been to South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Nice to go again, and maybe a few more countries as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mother, excuse me, before you leave, we have a certain ritual that we follow, which will take us about a minute. So, dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant the Lord's Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, Her Grace Mother URMILA Devi, for sharing her love and wisdom with us today. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Grace URMILA Devi Dosi Mataji ki. This co-founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
God glorious to assemble devotees.